Hi, and welcome to our visit and tour of York Minster in the historic city of York. Now, as you probably know, York is in the north of England, well served by rail and road networks. We had 2 nights in York as part of our Yorkshire Road Trip, and there'll be more of the city in a later video, but I didn't want to rush York Minster. So without further ado, let's take a look. York Minster is just a 15-minute walk from the station and can be found in the northern quadrant of the Old City, and it dominates the view from the Old City walls. Get closer and it looks spectacular, although there is some work ongoing to keep it in tip-top shape, but you can still enjoy it from College Green or Dean's Park. As is often the case, there is a price of admission to visit York Minster, and I'll pop a link in the description so you can find out the current prices. However, it's still free to visit a service. We've paid up, so let's step inside. You're now in one of the largest Gothic cathedrals in Northern Europe. That's right, I called it a cathedral, and it has also been known as the Cathedral Church of St Peter in York. It is also the seat of the Archbishop of York, the second highest office in the Church of England. I'll cover a brief history of York and explain where the Minster fits in. In summary, civilised York was settled by the Romans in AD 71. The Angles arrived in the 5th century after the Romans had left, giving it its Anglo-Saxon flavour, before the Vikings invaded in the 9th century. However, the most important period is the Norman invasion of 1066, because the current York Minster was started in 1080. Although the King's screen before us dates from the 15th century, and the beautiful organ originating in 1832, but the pipes and mechanism have been replaced and restored over the years. The original 17th century organ was lost in a fire that was deliberately started in 1829. Then we have the King's Gate, with its 15 kings of England from William the Conqueror to Henry VI. This will lead you through to York Minster's Quire. Once again, the original 15th century stalls were destroyed in that fire of 1829 and recreated in the 19th century in a medieval style. And if you look back, you get another chance to see York Minster's beautiful organ and the impressive Gothic stonework. Now, as we have another look around the choir, if you're enjoying this, then please give us a like, it really helps. And if you enjoy my style of video, then why not subscribe, because there's plenty more to come. We have a wider look at York, and on the rest of this road trip we'll also visit Whitby, Ripon and Harrogate and cover all the places in between. Anyway, as I mentioned, the initial church was started in 1080 and completed in 1100. However, the Gothic structure, which was aimed at rivaling Canterbury Cathedral in the south, was planned from 1215, started in 1220 and the first phase completed in the 1250s. However, additions and modifications were made until the 15th century. We're in the east end of York Minster, which houses the newly restored 15th century Great East Window. And how do I know this? Well, the York Minster site has a ton of useful information, which I've referenced, and I'll include a link in the description below. If you happen to visit York Minster, you can't help but be impressed by the stained glass windows, but more of that later. Now we get a glimpse of the rich and famous of the good people of York from the Elizabethan period. I'm assuming that by their outfits. Along this wall at the eastern edge of York Minster is a selection, and to be honest, many of those family names I don't recognise. I'm sure even if I did the slightest digging, it could expose more, but the memorials here tell me enough. It's now time to descend to the Undercroft and the first of York Minster's 2 crypts. It's in this part of the church you'll discover relics from York's 2,000 years of history, from the Romans through the Vikings and beyond, including the Doomstone, a 12th century carving depicting the descent of the damned souls into hell via a cauldron and the 3 hell mouths. You'll also discover St William of York, quite literally as his tomb is here too, He was York's answer to Thomas à Becket, the Archbishop martyred by followers of Henry II at Canterbury Cathedral and canonised in 1173. He was proving to be a big draw for the pilgrims with their deep pockets. So we have William of York, who was Archbishop of York and said to be poisoned. After his death, miracles were reported at his tomb, and he was canonised in 1226. We rise from the undercroft and come across a 12th or 13th century coat chest, used to house the long mantles of cloaks worn by members of the clergy for ceremonial occasions. We're back at the great east window of York Minster. It's said to be one of the most celebrated examples of medieval stained glass in the world, but to look at it in more detail I have to use the photograph I captured, rather than the footage from the DJI Osmo Pocket. Restored between 2008 to 2018, it depicts scenes from the Bible in over 300 individual panels, and it's a truly stunning work of art. We now take a look at what I believe is the All Saints Chapel, but if I'm wrong then please leave me a comment, or if I'm not, or you don't know, I'd love to hear from you. As is often the case, you'll find tombs of past figures from the church's history. Here we have Tobias Matthew, a favourite of Queen Elizabeth I. Then again we have another collection of memorials, but the ones that interest me are the regimental ones, to those that were lost in building or maintaining the empire. It documents a slice of British history, and one that we look on less favourably these days. There's a little more on York Minster's organ, as well as the chance to see the big pipes. Boy, are these impressive. We're making our way to the chapter house, but before we get there we stumble across the Astronomical clock, which is not as old as you may think. It is a memorial to the airmen from the bases of Yorkshire, Durham and Northumberland who were killed in action in World War II, and it was installed in York Minster in 1955. Anyway, it's just a few steps from here and you're at the chapter house. And I have to be honest, I had no idea what a chapter house was until we visited Wells Cathedral. I'll pop a link up to that at the end. Then we found one in Salisbury Cathedral, which houses the Magna Carta. Anyway, in case, if like me you didn't know, it's where important church business is conducted by the clergy of the local diocese, a meeting place for them if you like. In all three I've seen you're greeted with wonderful stained glass windows and a magnificent ceiling, and York Minster is no exception. I'm going to be quiet now so you can admire the stained glass, some of the intricate detail, and of course that beautiful ceiling. Stepping out of the chapter house, we catch a couple more chapels, but all the time remembering this is a place of worship and respecting those who are here to worship. As we make our way to the exit, we pass the retired regimental colours before finally stepping outside. It's now time to bring this video to a close. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you like what we put together, and stay tuned for our further adventures around Yorkshire. Stay safe, stay well, and happy travels.